Ryan Neiman, Brian Wilson, Mary Catherine Ham, today's newsmakers, and you, the Morning Majority. 105.9 FM, AM 630. WMAL.
6:38 on a Thursday morning. About half hour from now, or I should say about an hour from now, Stuart Varney from the Fox Business Channel will join us. The latest on Greece with him, and Tony Blankley coming your way at 8:06 this morning. Lanny Davis is on the line right now, former Clinton counsel, of course, Democrat, liberal, but a guy who does crisis management.
Well, and he's got a lot of experience in this regard, having served in the Clinton administration.
A lot of
hands-on experience there.
Yeah, all right. So, Lanny, what has Herman Cain done right? Has he done anything right in handling this situation?
Can you give me a few years to think about it? I may come up with something.
No, I bet you've got an opinion.
He hasn't done a single thing right. And it's been so easy. It's just mystifying to me, and he's not the only one that mystifies me, that the solution is so obvious. If he did something wrong, and that's why he doesn't want to talk about it, he's not going to prevent people from finding out that he did something wrong, because sooner or later it's going to come out. So he should step up to the line, tell everyone what happened, apologize to the women, and move on. If he didn't do anything wrong, and even more so is it mystifying, why doesn't he just tell everybody what happened and move on? Either way, the idea is to move on, and he doesn't seem to get that.
You know, the thing that is sort of hurting his case here is that he's been so inconsistent in the things that he said. First thing he says when this starts to break is, I didn't know anything about it. I don't remember. No, I don't know what you're talking about. Then we see a story today in which he says that in 2003 he sat down as he was preparing to run for the Senate, and he talked to a crisis communications guy and a messaging guy about that very incident and said, as I go forward, this is something that might pop up. We need to be prepared for it. So, first of all, there's inconsistency. The second thing that bothers me about this, and I know you probably have an opinion about this, he had 10 days' notice that this story was going to break, and he didn't seem to have a plan in place to deal with it when it finally did.
Well, I didn't hear about that crisis communications conversation. So that's the 10 days is the mystery I write about in my column today in the Hill, my mythological conversation with Mr. Cain, saying, well, you have 10 days. Let's get all the facts, tell the Restaurant Association that you're going to put them out whether they like it or not. Their agreement can't be really enforced against you. It's up to you to put your own information out, even if you sign the agreement. Challenge them to sue you. You want to get the truth out. That's never going to happen. But now the crisis communications, or whoever he consulted, I cannot imagine the advice wasn't, what are the facts, and let's be sure you know exactly what you're going to say when you announce for the Senate, so you put this out yourself rather than waiting for Politico or somebody else to put it out. So the answer to your opening question is, can anybody think, the obvious answer is no, of anything that he's done right here? And especially, he was going so well in his campaign, you would think he would want to put this behind him quickly. It makes no sense.
Do you think I'm somewhat skeptical that had he had the story all in line and he had told it for a couple of days to all the news outlets, that could he just move on from that? I'm somewhat skeptical that they would stop asking questions and haunting him at every stop.
Well, if it's the limited, modified hangout, then of course no. If you leave something out, someone's going to... I remember once when I was at the White House, and the best press secretary in the history of the universe, in my opinion, Mike McCurry, came to me and said, I understand you talked to a reporter and we're putting out, meaning leaking, this story, but you didn't say the worst fact. And I said, well, Michael, he didn't ask me. And he said, call him back and say, you didn't ask me this question. Why don't you ask me this question? And it finally hit me that what McCurry understood is if I didn't get into one story, all of the bad facts, not some, not most, but all, then it would continue. So I think the honest answer to your question is he's got to do what Geraldine Ferrara, which is now a proper noun, may her soul rest in peace, when Ferrara ran for vice president in 1984. Her husband was in serious controversy, and she held a press conference after several weeks of not being able to get her arms around everything that had happened. And she said, I'm not leaving the room until I answer every one of your questions.
I saw Lloyd Benson do that one time when he was the vice president's running mate. And you know why that always works? You just deflate after you say, hey, here's everything.
Here we are.
Yeah, this is it. And after about a half an hour, you run out of gas and you got no more questions, and the story fades. You're absolutely right. Here's the big question, though, Lanny. Let's say you did get that call from Herman Cain. You really got it. Is there any way he can salvage the mess now?
Yes. The American people are very forgiving, especially when somebody acts dumb and says, you know what, I acted dumb. And I was worried about being embarrassed. It's one of the most honest statements somebody can make in a situation involving allegations of sexual harassment. He should show sensitivity, even if he doesn't think he had anything bad in mind. Women are sensitive to certain gestures, certain symbolic moments. That sensitivity, he should say, I missed it, and I paid for it, and now I screwed it up, and I'll tell you why I messed up on crisis management rules. I was embarrassed, and it took me a while to figure out that I just had to tell the truth. I apologize to these women, and I want to move on.
Well, but what if he feels like he didn't sexually harass anyone?
Well, then he should say that and put out the facts.
Well, he kind of has said he didn't feel like that he was false. He says he falsely accused of sexual harassment.
You can't end up with a conclusion without putting the facts in front of the conclusion. He's got to do who, what, when, where, why, details. Ask me your questions. This is what I remember. This is what happened. This is in the settlement agreement. This is what I paid. And this is what I'm sorry for. Whatever it is, if there isn't a question that's been asked, wait for it and answer it. And make sure you're not ducking. That's the whole idea, is don't duck.
I don't know if he has the power to do this, but I mean, should he ask the National Restaurant Association to release the women?
Absolutely. First thing he should have done, and challenge the anonymous sourced Politico story to come out and give him a chance to defend himself and take the high ground. But most importantly, he's got to apologize for offending somebody that he didn't intend to offend, or for acting inappropriately. And I think you would find an awful lot of people, women and men, would forgive him for that.
Yeah, I know. I just have a problem apologizing if you don't feel like you did anything wrong.
Well, then you'd say that. You say, look, I don't think there isn't a single thing you can say to me that I won't agree with you on.